If you have an intuitive knowing, yes. You can, if it's real, if it's a good one, yeah, sure. That's what you want to be able to develop. That's a good litmus test.
If you have a dream 6 months in advance where you met the person and you met them 6 months later.
Yeah, yeah. Or if they dance at the edge of your bed. Yeah, right. Yeah, they do the salsa. So anyway, he had one real awakening. Then he has another one, and Robert Adams, The good news for him is he had a teacher. See, if you don't have a teacher, you have all these experiences that you might think are deep realization. And I've seen this many times, forever. I saw it at the Zen Center. And the good news is if you're in some kind of tradition where this stuff is routinely dealt with, or you have somebody you can talk to who knows what they're talking about, they can easily say, no, not, or no, deeper. Because that's what I was told endlessly. Even after I had deep awakenings, go deeper. Not yet, go deeper. But nobody gets told that now. There's no what I call quality control. It's just if somebody decides they're awake, then they're awake. And I've talked to other people who are in various traditions who don't do, there's no quality control. I said, well, what the hell? How do you, well, if somebody says they're awake, then I assume they are awake. Oh, really? It's a problem. When everything was in, and I wrote something about this, like awakening outside of monastery walls, and I put on my blog. When this kind of stuff was confined to traditions like monasteries or various religious traditions, this wasn't a big problem. One thing, there was no internet and YouTube, so you couldn't go in there and influence millions of people with your wrong teaching. And two, there was constant supervision and training. And no, you're still over here, you're confused. Keep at it. And this would go on routinely for 20 years. That doesn't happen anymore because now it's a free-for-all. And there's an upside to that that's significant, and there's a downside. Okay. So I had the second experience, which I still see as an experience the way I read this. But anyway, Robert recognized this as something, enlightenment. Then, lo and behold, this is an important point. Year later, even though I was told I was enlightened, later I was grabbed by a Great Depression after that awakening caused by Robert's death and the death of my favorite cat. That depression lasted for 3 years. Interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Then what is awakening? What does it mean? Enlightenment, enlightenment.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the Bruce Rubin story too.
Yeah, and I'm very familiar with Bruce's path right now, and and it's everybody's story who's honest. Like, no matter how deep the awakening, it's incomplete. It's incomplete because there are still vasanas, or conditioned reactions, or programs that continue to arise if you're willing to go further. Now, an awful lot of people don't have a clue that this is not only possible, but highly desirable. Meaning, and I understand it, it's like once you have a direct experience of non-dual awareness, the idea that that's really just the beginning, not that that is the end, is very hard to grasp. Like you described, they're in this, I would call it la-la land state, where they're, it's very hard to grasp that there could be anything beyond that. But if you're in a tradition that teaches this stuff and that's fully aware of all the nuances of it, you're going to be told that. If you don't know it already, you're going to get it knocked into you, like I did, or, But if you're on your own out there in the world, it's almost impossible, having this real non-dual awareness, to think there's more. But trust me, there's more. And that's one reason I like this article so much. He makes it very clear. Nothing like, I mean, the non-dual realization, especially one that continues, you know, is really profound and powerful and enormously beneficial and destabilizing and so forth, transforming. But that has to become totally integrated into ordinary life. Now, I don't think a lot of people know about this. At least they don't talk about it. Especially, like he says, the Neo-Advaitins on YouTube. If you listen to them, there's just no you, there's no me, there's no self, there's nothing to do, there's no one to do it. So don't do anything and just shut. I don't know, just do what you do. And I don't mean to but that's a little bit of a caricature, but that's literally also the way it is. There's a guy who writes prolifically. You know, I won't remain anonymous, but you know, he made some comments when I gave my talk on food at the gas pump. You know, because I said there was a goal involved. He just lit into me about that. Because if you say there's a goal, then you're back in duality, right? Understand that, but. He's totally a non-dualist, 100% non-dual. You can only see the non-dual. So if you speak of duality, then you're not really awake. You're not really there. Only non-duality is real. Everything else is not real.
They're called Advaita Nazis.
Yeah. I didn't know they were called that, but I'll go. I like that.
They're called Advaita Nazis.
And this is just so, I feel like saying idiotic. It's like, do you people have any functioning brain? I mean, I go with that term.
They call you out every time you say something that sounds somewhat dualistic.
I know.
But how are you going to say anything?
Right.
But you can't say anything worth saying and not sound dualistic. So anyway, they're real, as he says, a scourge of the internet, and they are. They really are.
The absolute is so remarkable and complete that it encompasses its negation.
I would say, yeah, I guess. I would say, whatever. The absolute is so, and I believe some of these people have experienced a real non-dual awareness, but that's where they stop. And the idea that that's just the real beginning of this path is incomprehensible to them. So, anyway. We had this Great Depression, which I would say is not hard to understand. There's a lot of reasons for it. The basic reason is the vasanas have not been totally burned out. Another reason is that his two awakenings, even though Robert Adams approved the second one, were still experiences. And the third reason is because this is what almost everybody has to go through. It's like normal. Maybe it doesn't have to be this big a depression, but it just depends on how much the vasanas have been burned out. You could say the purification, how deep the purification has been. And the purification in this case means on every level. Physical, emotional, mental, causal body, etheric body, past lives, everything. Energetic, DNA. It's a process. And this is the progressive aspect of it. So there's certain key conflicts that if you become a teacher of this, you get thrown in your face over and over again. One of them is the idea of is it gradual or is it sudden? And awakening is always sudden. But the integration of it and the manifestation and the embodiment of it is always gradual. Right? So no matter how deeply awake you are, you have to go through this gradual process of burning out the vasanas. Does everybody notice? Yeah, it's like.
So let's have a workshop on burning out vasanas.
Well, we do. We call that, almost everything I talk about is about that. Almost every time I open my mouth, I'm talking about that issue. Because that you can do with or without awakening. And as I've said many times, if you do it before awakening, in some ways that's even better, because once you have some level of awakening, there's this tendency to go crazy. Meaning to be unreachable. And I've seen this over and over again now. because you're convinced, you're done. And I can't tell you how many people I've heard say this. I'm done now. Not around here, because we're getting the straight dope here. But in other parts of the country where there's nobody who's really telling the whole story, they have a non-dual realization of some kind. It's a glimpse. It's not even Kensho usually, which is a solid awakening experience of the Zen tradition. And then they're done. And they stop practicing, they stop going to meetings, they stop learning, they stop doing anything because they're done. They're self-realized. Nonsense. And he calls it out in this article very well.